woman walks into a luxurious showroom, unaware that her simple appearance would soon become the target of ridicule and judgment. But little do they know, behind her humble facade lies a secret powerful enough to turn everything upside down. A costly lesson is about to unfold, making the arrogant pay the price and forever changing how they see the world. Are you ready to discover the truth? Anna Mitchell stood in front of the luxurious entrance of Boston Luxury Motors, taking a deep breath before stepping inside. The morning light filtered gently through the transparent glass, casting a soft glow on the sleek, elegant cars artistically displayed within. Each vehicle resembled a proud work of art, reflecting a shimmering light that made Anna's heart flutter faintly. This place was the complete opposite of the simplicity she had always chosen for herself. Dressed in a plain white t-shirt and faded blue jeans, paired with slightly worn sneakers, Anna stood out in her understated attire. Yet her eyes sparkled with genuine excitement, tinged with a hint of nervousness. She didn't often visit such lavish places, not because she couldn't, but because Anna had always believed that true beauty lay in simplicity and authenticity. Today, however, was an exception. She stepped lightly inside, the automatic glass doors sliding open as if to welcome her, though the glances from the sales staff seemed less than warm. A few of them exchanged looks, their subtle glances seemingly asking one another, "What's that woman doing here?" Anna's gaze swept across the dazzling space, settling on a sleek blue coupe perched atop a raised platform in the center of the showroom. Her eyes lit up, her heart suddenly beating faster as she thought of her older sister, Evelyn. Evelyn had always loved beautiful cars, but had never allowed herself to own something truly extravagant, even though Anna knew her sister absolutely deserved it. Evelyn had just emerged from a long, grueling battle with breast cancer. During those difficult months, she had vaguely mentioned a small dream, to own a stunning, special car just once in her life, something she had always considered out of reach. That was why Anna was here today. She wanted to make her sister's dream come true, to witness the radiant smile of the strong woman who had weathered so many of life's storms. This gift wasn't just a luxury car. It was a symbol of the admiration, love, and immense gratitude Anna felt for her sister. Anna gently touched the glass display surrounding the captivating blue coupe, an indescribable wave of emotion rising within her. She smiled to herself, picturing the moment Evelyn would receive this extraordinary gift. Her sister's eyes brimming with surprise and joy. But amid those pure, tender feelings, a voice broke through, pulling Anna back to reality. "Excuse me, how can I assist you today?" Anna turned around. Standing before her was a man in a sharp suit, his keen eyes scanning her from head to toe, a professional yet cold smile flickering across his face. It was Brandon Carter, the sales manager of the city's most renowned luxury car dealership. Anna maintained her gentle smile and replied politely, "I'm very interested in that blue coupe over there. I'd like to buy it as a birthday gift for my sister." Brandon raised an eyebrow, his eyes betraying a flicker of skepticism, but Anna paid it no mind. She was entirely immersed in her own small, innocent joy, oblivious to the fact that this moment was the beginning of an event that would soon change many things in their lives. Brandon Carter stared at Anna for a few seconds, his cold, sharp gray eyes sliding from her plain face down to her faded sneakers. A faint, contemptuous smile flickered across his lips, causing Anna to furrow her brow as a vague sense of unease welled up inside her. "You're interested in that blue coupe?" Brandon enunciated each word deliberately, his gaze tinged with mockery and doubt. He ran a hand lightly over his expensive suit, stepping closer to her, his voice dropping low but loud enough for the surrounding customers and staff to hear. "It seems you might not fully understand, but this isn't some budget car dealership. That car starts at $285,000. His words pierced Anna's pride like tiny icy needles. The air around her seemed to freeze, curious eyes turning toward her as if she'd become the unwilling center of an unwanted spectacle. Taking a deep breath, Anna tried to keep her voice calm and steady. "I'm well aware of the car's value. I want to buy it as a birthday gift for my sister. Brandon smirked, exchanging a quick, knowing glance with the nearby staff before turning back to Anna. His tone now carried open impatience and disdain. "Sorry, miss, but we typically work by private appointment with serious buyers. Perhaps you'd be better off visiting the used car lot a few blocks away. They'd be more suited to advise you based on your budget and needs." A few stifled chuckles echoed around her. The other employees turned away, pretending to busy themselves, but Anna caught the sly, mocking smiles and the prying, curious stares from some of the customers. Embarrassment surged hotly across her face, mingling with a sharp, indescribable ache in her chest. Summoning her composure once more, Anna spoke softly but firmly. "I'm completely serious about buying this car. I can pay for it today if necessary." Brandon let out a loud, short burst of laughter, an openly insulting sound that drew the attention of the entire showroom. He turned back to Anna, his cold eyes devoid of any pretense. "Pay today, miss? This isn't a flea market where you haggle and slap down cash for some second-hand junk. Our customers meet a certain standard. Maybe you should take a look at your outfit and ask yourself if you belong in a place like this." His words hit her like a stinging slap, leaving Anna feeling as though her dignity had been trampled right where she stood. All she could hear was the pounding of her heartbeat in her chest, her cheeks burning with humiliation. She'd never imagined being treated this way, especially not in a place she'd come to with such good intentions. Nearby customers began glancing at her with curiosity, whispering among themselves. Anna noticed a few well-dressed patrons subtly shaking their heads, as if silently agreeing with Brandon's cutting remarks. A fleeting look of sympathy crossed some faces, but it quickly vanished in the showroom's chilly, haughty atmosphere. Anna lifted her gaze to Brandon one last time, her eyes filled with disappointment and hurt, yet beneath the gentle green of her irises, a spark of resilience still shone. Clinging to her last shred of dignity, she spoke quietly but clearly. "I think I understand your perspective now. Thank you for your time." Brandon smirked again, a faint, victorious grin spreading across his face. He gave a mock polite nod before turning away to greet a group of wealthy customers who had just arrived. Anna slowly turned and walked toward the glass doors, her heart heavy with deep hurt and crushing disappointment. Behind her, she could still faintly hear Brandon's mocking voice as he spoke to another employee. "I really don't get it. Why do people like that always insist on stepping into places that clearly aren't meant for them?" Pushing the door open, Anna stepped outside, the daylight illuminating her flushed, humiliated face. She looked up at the vast blue sky, silently telling herself that perhaps people like Brandon would one day learn a lesson in kindness, whether sooner or later. And in that moment, Anna resolved that she would never let anyone else endure the pain she had just experienced. Never again. Anna quietly stepped out of the showroom, feeling as though the bustling sounds of the outside world were distant and faded, drowned out by the turmoil swirling within her. The sun still shone brightly over the city, but inside her there lingered only an indescribable coldness, as if her self-respect and trust had just been cruelly stripped away. She paused for a moment at a small street corner where maple trees cast soft shadows, and pressed a hand lightly to her chest, feeling her heart beating with pained, unsteady thumps. Brandon Carter's mocking words and sneering smile echoed relentlessly in her ears, carving a deep, throbbing ache more intense than anything she'd ever experienced. Looking up at the passers-by hurrying along in the gentle sunlight, Anna wondered how many of them had silently endured the same kind of hurt she was feeling now. Tears stung her clear green eyes, but she resolved not to let them fall. Not here, not at this moment. With a gentle motion, she pulled out her phone, her trembling hands dialing a familiar number. Within seconds, Andrew's warm, soothing voice came through. "Anna, is everything okay, sweetheart?" Just hearing his voice, tears spilled down Anna's cheeks despite her efforts to hold them back. She tried to stifle the sob caught in her throat, but her voice wavered. "Andrew, I just went through something really awful." Andrew's tone immediately shifted to one of concern and care. "What happened, Anna? Where are you? Do you need me to come pick you up?" Anna took a deep breath, gazing up at the vast sky as if drawing strength from its boundless blue, then replied shakily, "It's okay. I'll come home now. I just want to see you right away." "I'll be waiting for you," Andrew replied gently, his voice through the phone like a comforting balm that eased the weight on Anna's heart, if only slightly. She tucked the phone back into her pocket, quickly wiping away the tears lingering on her cheeks, and hurried toward the parking lot. A deep sense of gratitude suddenly welled up within her. Amid this vast, sometimes callous world, she always had Andrew to lean on. Throughout the drive home, the harsh words and judgmental stares from the showroom kept replaying in her mind. But this time they were interwoven with a stronger resolve. She didn't deserve to be treated that way, and no one else deserved to be hurt simply because of their appearance or clothing. Finally, when she reached their familiar home, Anna opened the door to find Andrew already waiting in the living room, his eyes full of love and worry fixed on her. Without a word, she rushed forward, throwing her arms around him tightly, letting her tears fall freely onto the shoulder of the husband she trusted most in the world. "I can't believe how cruel some people can be," she whispered through soft sobs. "I'm not just sad for myself, Andrew. I'm sad thinking about everyone else who's had to go through something like what I did today." Andrew held her close, comforting her gently. "I'm here now, and we'll figure this out together. I promise you that." Hearing those words, Anna closed her eyes, her heart calming slightly in his warm embrace. She knew that from this moment on, this wouldn't just be her own sad story anymore, and Brandon Carter would eventually learn a lesson about kindness. He just didn't know it yet. Anna curled up on the soft sofa, her gaze drifting into an unfocused void as the afternoon sunlight slipped gently through the window, as if trying to soothe the sorrow flooding her heart. Andrew quietly placed a steaming cup of tea on the table, pulling his chair closer, his eyes fixed on his wife with deep concern. "Anna, are you ready to tell me what happened?" Andrew's voice was gentle, almost a whisper, easing the weight in Anna's chest just a little. She took a deep breath and began recounting every detail, the sharp words, the cold, mocking stares Brandon Carter had directed at her. Each cutting remark felt like an invisible blade slicing into her once more as she spoke. Andrew listened in silence, his eyes shifting from heartache to quiet anger. He said, "I didn't belong in that dealership, that my appearance was too ordinary to afford a car like that." Anna's voice trembled, her eyes glistening again, not from weakness, but from the deep disappointment and hurt still lingering vividly in her mind. Andrew rested a gentle hand on her shoulder, his gaze serious yet warm. "Anna, you're the most incredible woman I know, and no one has the right to treat you that way. But more importantly, he has no right to treat anyone like that." Anna nodded slightly, a spark of determination flickering in her gentle green eyes. "You know, what hurt me most wasn't just the insult. It was thinking about how many others out there have felt the same way I did today. Not everyone is as fortunate as I am. Not everyone can stand up for themselves." Andrew gazed at her deeply, a mix of admiration and sorrow stirring within him. This was his Anna, strong, selfless, always thinking of others before herself. "So, what should we do?" Andrew asked, his tone softening but carrying a firm resolve. Anna furrowed her brow, her eyes drifting into the distance as she pondered deeply. After a long moment, she turned to Andrew, her gaze unwavering. "I don't want revenge, Andrew. Revenge would only bring us down to their level. But I also don't want to let this go as if it's normal, as if that kind of behavior is acceptable." Andrew smiled gently, instantly understanding his wife's intent. He tilted his head, curiosity piqued. "What are you thinking, Anna?" Her green eyes sparkled as a soft, enigmatic smile curved her lips. "I think Brandon needs to be educated, but not in the way he treats others. We'll give him a lesson he'll never forget. A lesson about kindness and never judging someone by their appearance." Andrew looked at his wife with a mix of surprise and pride, feeling a surge of positive, powerful energy radiating from her. He squeezed her hand, nodding in agreement. I am completely with you. So, how do we do this? Anna smiled, a genuine radiant smile that lit up her face for the first time since returning from the showroom. You know how Brandon said they only serve special customers, the rich and powerful? Well, we'll give him exactly what he wants to see, just in a way he'd never expect. Andrew raised an eyebrow, intrigued and amused. You've got something in mind, don't you, Anna? She met his gaze confidently, her voice soft but sharp. Tomorrow, you'll drive to Boston Luxury Motors in our most expensive Rolls-Royce Phantom and make Brandon Carter realize who he insulted today, not for revenge, but to show him that a person's true worth can't be judged by their outward appearance. Andrew chuckled softly, his eyes brimming with pride and love for the remarkable woman before him. I'm certain Brandon won't forget that lesson. Anna leaned her head gently against Andrew's shoulder, her heart suddenly lighter. The hurt from earlier began to fade, replaced by excitement and a fierce belief in kindness. A gift she believed everyone deserved to give and receive. The early morning sunlight streamed through the wide glass windows of the Mitchell villa, gently bathing the sleek, midnight black Rolls-Royce Phantom in a soft yet commanding glow. Andrew stood quietly before the car, his deep eyes reflecting a mix of contemplation and unwavering resolve. The surrounding stillness was broken only by the gentle rustle of the morning breeze brushing through the lush green leaves in the garden. For Andrew, today was no ordinary day. It was the moment he would make his appearance at Boston Luxury Motors, a moment that would change many things, not just for Brandon Carter, but for everyone who had witnessed how Anna had been treated. He ran his hand lightly along the car's smooth, polished surface, its flawless curves and exquisite design mirroring the growing determination in his mind. Andrew wasn't angry, but he couldn't tolerate the disrespect shown to the woman he loved most. He wasn't going there to pick a fight or seek revenge. He was going to deliver a profound lesson about the true worth of a person. Behind him, Anna approached slowly, a faint smile gracing her lips as she watched him stand quietly by the car. He turned to meet her clear, trusting gaze and asked softly, "Are you still okay with this plan?" Anna nodded gently, her green eyes shining with a quiet but powerful conviction. "I'm fine. I trust you. And I believe this is the right thing to do, not just for me, but for everyone who's ever been hurt in the same way." Andrew smiled with pride, taking Anna's hand in his warm grasp, his voice steady and resolute. "I'll make Brandon see that a person can't be judged by their appearance. I'll do it clearly but with dignity, so that not just Brandon but everyone at the showroom will remember this lesson forever." Anna squeezed his hand a little tighter, looking at him with gratitude and unwavering faith as she whispered, "I just hope that after today no one else has to feel the way I did, and that Brandon can truly learn from this." Andrew pulled her into a gentle embrace, pressing a soft kiss to her forehead, a promise both tender and firm. "I believe he will, Anna. I promise you that." As Anna watched Andrew climb into the car and start its smooth, powerful engine, an odd sense of peace settled over her heart. She knew that his appearance today wouldn't just change Brandon Carter. It would shift how the world around them perceived true value, the kind that lay deep within, far beyond superficial glamour. And it would all begin the moment that majestic Rolls-Royce Phantom rolled out of the villa's gates. Boston Luxury Motors buzzed with more energy than usual that morning. The sophisticated LED lighting cast a refined glow over the luxurious cars, each gleaming angle radiating an air of elegance and extravagance. Brandon Carter stood near the expansive window, his eyes briefly glancing outside, a smug expression crossing his face as he recalled humiliating Anna the day before. A faint smirk tugged at his cold features, but it vanished the moment an extraordinary car rolled up to the showroom's entrance. The Rolls-Royce Phantom's engine purred softly yet powerfully, silencing the chatter within the showroom in an almost uncanny way. All eyes turned outward, filled with curiosity and anticipation. The sleek black vehicle came to a regal stop at the entrance, the daylight glinting off its polished surface as if announcing a presence both special and enigmatic. Brandon immediately sensed something unusual. His heart skipped a beat as the driver's door opened slowly. The chauffeur stepped out, meticulously circling to the rear and opening the door with professional reverence. A man emerged from the car. He wore a perfectly tailored black suit that hugged his tall frame, exuding a calm yet commanding aura. His chiseled, handsome face carried the poise of someone not just wealthy but remarkably sharp and refined. This was Andrew Mitchell. Brandon quickly straightened his tie, flashing his usual professional smile as he hurried to the door to greet this distinguished guest. He had no inkling of what was about to unfold. "Welcome to Boston Luxury Motors, sir. I'm Brandon Carter, the manager here. It's an honor to assist you," Brandon said with a polite tone, bowing slightly to display a level of respect he rarely showed anyone. Andrew regarded Brandon calmly, his piercing, deep eyes seeming to probe something vital. He nodded slowly, his voice low and clear. "I'm Andrew Mitchell. You seem quite friendly today, Brandon. Quite different from how you treated my wife yesterday." Andrew's words struck like lightning through a clear sky, freezing the entire showroom in its opulent silence. Brandon flinched, his face paling instantly, his lips trembling in shock and dread. Your wife?" Brandon stammered, his usual confidence evaporating. The surrounding crowd began to murmur, their gazes locking onto Andrew with a mix of curiosity and astonishment. Andrew stepped closer, his tone steady but laced with authority, each word sharp and deliberate. "Yes, Anna Mitchell is my wife, the unassuming woman you insulted, mocked, and belittled in front of so many of your customers just because of how she looked." The tension in the room surged to a peak. Brandon stumbled back a step, his face now completely ashen. He looked at Andrew with pleading eyes, fumbling for an excuse. "Mr. Mitchell, sir, it was just a small misunderstanding. I had no idea." Andrew raised a hand calmly, cutting him off, his gaze still razor-sharp yet composed. "No, Brandon, it wasn't a misunderstanding. It was an insult. My wife came here with a sincere heart to buy a gift for her sister, and in return, you treated her with contempt. All because she didn't wear extravagance on her sleeve." Each of Andrew's words rang out clearly, slicing into Brandon like invisible blades, leaving him overwhelmed with shame and humiliation. The customers around them stood in silence, watching intently, no one daring to interrupt as they observed the scene with curiosity and surprise. The showroom owner, Richard Harris, hurried over, his face taut with anxiety as he tried to defuse the situation. "Mr. Mitchell, I'm truly sorry for what happened. I assure you, this isn't the standard of service we uphold." Andrew turned his cold, unflinching gaze to Richard, his voice steady and resolute. "I don't need empty apologies. I'm here today to give Brandon an important lesson about judging people by their appearance, and not just him. Everyone present needs to understand that a person's worth isn't defined by their clothes, wealth, or social status." He paused, locking his unwavering eyes on Brandon, who stood frozen, his expression a mix of panic and despair. "I want you to grasp this fully, Brandon. This is your chance to reflect seriously and deeply on how you treat others." Andrew adjusted his suit collar with a subtle motion, his gaze softening slightly but still firm as he addressed Richard. "Now I think we should sit down and discuss this further, clearly. Don't worry. I'm not here for revenge or to harm anyone. I only hope that after today we all walk away with the right lesson." As Andrew strode further into the showroom, every eye followed him with genuine respect and admiration. Meanwhile, Brandon remained rooted to the spot in the middle of the lobby, realizing that the world he'd built on disdain for others had just been utterly dismantled by Andrew Mitchell. The atmosphere in Boston Luxury Motors had sunk into a heavy, stifling silence. The high-end lights still illuminated the gleaming cars, but their initial allure seemed to have faded. The air thickened with tension as every pair of eyes fixed on Brandon Carter, who stood like a statue in the middle of the grand lobby. His shoulders trembled faintly, his face drained of color, overwhelmed by confusion and shame. Brandon had never imagined he'd find himself in such a situation. His usual confidence, arrogance, and cool detachment had dissolved like sea foam. Andrew Mitchell's words still rang in his ears like an unrelenting bell, making every gaze directed at him feel like a barrage of tiny icy needles piercing the once proud core of his self-esteem. "Brandon!" Richard Harris's stern yet faintly gentle voice cut through the oppressive quiet from behind, shattering the eerie stillness. Richard approached him, his expression a blend of gravity and disappointment. "I need to speak with you right now." Turning to Andrew, Richard softened his tone, striving to maintain the utmost courtesy. "Mr. Mitchell, please allow us a few minutes to address this. I assure you we'll find the most appropriate resolution." Andrew nodded slightly, his demeanor calm but his eyes still sharp and commanding. "I'll be waiting, Mr. Harris, but I hope you understand. I'm not here for mere apologies." Richard dipped his head in acknowledgement before swiftly ushering Brandon into a nearby office. As the door closed behind them, Brandon practically collapsed into a leather chair, his head bowed low, his trembling hands cradling his face in shame and bewilderment. Richard regarded Brandon with deep disappointment, his voice tinged with both concern and reprimand, like a father let down by a child he'd once held high hopes for. "Brandon, I'd never expected you to make such a colossal mistake. Do you even realize who that man is? You just offended Andrew Mitchell, one of the most influential billionaires in this city." Brandon looked up, his eyes stripped of their usual cold arrogance, now filled only with humiliation and despair. I didn't know, Mr. Harris. I honestly thought she was just some ordinary person who wandered in. I never imagined she could be Andrew Mitchell's wife." Richard sighed, shaking his head slowly, his tone sinking into weary resignation. "That's exactly the problem, Brandon. You should never judge anyone by their appearance. Today, we're all paying a steep price for that mistake." Brandon fell silent, his chest tightening at the painful truth. He recalled every cutting, contemptuous word he'd flung at Anna, and the shame now weighed heavier than even the fear of losing his job. Richard shook his head slightly. "Right now, the most important thing is figuring out how to show Mr. Mitchell that you're genuinely remorseful, and that this dealership doesn't stand for such deplorable behavior." Brandon lifted his eyes, pleading and feeble. "What should I do, Mr. Harris? I don't even know how to fix this anymore." Richard exhaled deeply, pausing in thought before speaking slowly. "I think the best approach is for you to personally apologize to Mr. and Mrs. Mitchell, not just with words, but with real actions. Mr. Mitchell might appreciate it if you take it upon yourself to learn a practical lesson about respect and the true value of a person." Brandon nodded weakly, his mind still a chaotic mess, but deep in his heart, a faint glimmer began to emerge, a spark of regret and a growing awareness of the gravity of his mistake. The office door opened, and Richard stepped out first, his gaze settling on Andrew Mitchell with a sincerity and seriousness he'd never shown before. "Mr. Mitchell, we're ready to discuss this further and address the matter clearly. Brandon also has something he'd like to say to you directly." Andrew stood calmly, his deep eyes turning toward Brandon, who emerged with a face full of genuine shame and repentance. In that moment, Brandon Carter knew he could never return to being the person he once was, and though this lesson stung, he understood it was entirely deserved. Andrew Mitchell stood in the middle of the showroom, his demeanor calm and imbued with a sense of compassion that starkly contrasted the earlier tension. Before him was Brandon Carter, who had just endured the most humiliating and despairing moment of his life. Andrew studied Brandon closely, noting that the young manager's eyes no longer carried the arrogance or defiance they once did. Instead, they reflected genuine remorse and sincerity. Richard Harris stepped forward, his voice warm and earnest as he addressed Andrew. "Mr. Mitchell, I sincerely apologize to you and your wife for what happened, but I understand that mere words can't undo anything. Please, give us a chance to prove our sincerity." Andrew nodded gently, his deep eyes glinting with empathy yet unwavering resolve. I appreciate your awareness, Richard, and I believe in Brandon's genuine remorse. But indeed, I didn't come here just to hear an apology. He turned to Brandon, his tone softening but still firm. I want you to understand something, Brandon. Your biggest mistake wasn't insulting my wife. It was insulting the worth of a human being based solely on their appearance. You need to realize that behind anyone's simple exterior could lie something truly extraordinary. Brandon met Andrew's gaze, feeling the weight of each word settle into him like never before. His voice trembled slightly, but this time it stemmed from sincerity rather than fear. I know I was wrong, Mr. Mitchell, but I don't know how to make up for this mistake. I truly hope you'll give me a chance. Andrew offered a faint smile, as if he'd been waiting for this moment all along. He glanced at Richard, his voice growing clear and resolute. My wife, Anna Mitchell, runs a charity organization dedicated to helping underprivileged and disabled children. I think Brandon should spend some time volunteering there, not just to make amends but to experience and understand the true value of people firsthand. Brandon flinched slightly, caught off guard, but quickly realized this was his one real opportunity to atone. He nodded immediately, his voice filled with earnest determination. I agree, Mr. Mitchell. I'm willing to do whatever it takes to learn from my mistake. Andrew regarded him for a long moment before speaking softly. Good, Brandon, but I want you to remember this isn't a punishment. It's an opportunity for you to see that every person deserves to be treated with respect and kindness. In the days that followed, Brandon Carter arrived at Anna's charity with a humble demeanor, a stark departure from the arrogant man he once was. He began with simple yet meaningful tasks, cleaning playgrounds, assisting wheelchair-bound children with activities, and listening to the small but resilient stories of those from difficult backgrounds. At first, Brandon saw it as a duty to redeem himself, but gradually, the radiant smiles of the children and their quiet, courageous tales began to stir his heart. He started to understand that life's most precious values couldn't be measured by wealth or outward glamour. Anna Mitchell occasionally stopped by, quietly observing Brandon from a distance. She noticed the shift in his eyes, from initial reluctance to genuine, heartfelt enthusiasm. One day, she approached him, smiling warmly. I'm really glad to see you've grasped what Andrew wanted you to learn. How do you feel, Brandon? Brandon looked up at Anna, feeling small for the first time before the gentle grace and forgiveness of the woman he'd once hurt. His voice wavered slightly but brimmed with sincerity. I owe you an apology, Mrs. Mitchell. I used to think a person's worth was all about their appearance, but now I see how wrong I was. These kids have taught me an invaluable lesson. Anna placed a gentle hand on his shoulder, her smile radiating warmth. That's the lesson we all need to remember, Brandon. A person's true value always lies deep within their heart, nowhere else. Brandon nodded slowly, his heart lighter than ever before. He knew that from this moment his life had turned a new page, one filled with kindness, empathy, and the authentic, precious worth of humanity. A peaceful Sunday morning enveloped the city, with gentle sunlight filtering through the green leaves, casting a golden sheen across the streets, as if trying to soothe the wounds of the past. Anna Mitchell stood once more before the entrance of Boston Luxury Motors. But this time, her heart no longer carried the weight it had on her first visit. She stepped inside slowly, her soft green eyes sweeping over the gleaming cars displayed elegantly under the lights. Today, she was dressed as simply as ever, a plain white t-shirt, light blue jeans, and her familiar sneakers. But this time no one cast a glance of disdain or doubt her way. Instead, she was met with polite, warm smiles and genuine goodwill from the staff. Brandon Carter stood in the middle of the showroom. Upon seeing Anna enter, he hurried over, his eyes filled with unmistakable sincerity and respect. He bowed slightly in greeting, his voice polite and heartfelt. Welcome back, Mrs. Mitchell. It's an honor to have you here again. Please allow me to assist you today. Anna smiled gently, her expression kind and forgiving, devoid of any trace of resentment or coldness. She looked at Brandon for a long moment before responding softly. "Thank you, Brandon. I'm here to complete the gift for my sister. I still want that blue coupe." Brandon returned a genuine smile, his eyes now entirely different from their first encounter. Gone was the aloof arrogance, replaced by a sincerity that came from deep within. "Of course, Mrs. Mitchell. The car is ready for you. Please, allow me to show you." As Brandon led Anna to the sleek blue coupe, her heart swelled with an indescribable joy. She brushed her hand lightly over its smooth finish, feeling a pure happiness as she imagined the moment her sister Evelyn would receive this special gift. A gentle warmth, like the morning sun, flooded her chest. Brandon stood quietly beside her, watching with a look of gratitude and admiration. He spoke softly, his voice tinged with emotion. "I'm truly grateful to you, Mrs. Mitchell. The past few days at your charity have completely changed how I see the world and myself. I sincerely thank you." Anna turned to him, her gaze tender and earnest. "I'm glad to hear that, Brandon. Honestly, I never wanted revenge or to punish anyone. I just wanted us all to realize that every person has their own unique worth and no one deserves to be judged by their appearance alone." Brandon nodded, his eyes reflecting a deep newfound conviction. "I understand that now, ma'am. It's been the most important lesson of my life." Anna smiled, completing the car purchase with a sense of ease and peace. It felt as though all the hurt from before had melted away, replaced by an absolute serenity as she realized that, in the end, the gift for Evelyn wasn't just the luxury car. It was the profound lesson in kindness she'd helped spread. As Anna prepared to leave the showroom, she paused, glancing around at everyone present, and spoke gently. "I hope we all remember that a person's true value lies in their heart, in what they give, and how they treat those around them. Always treat others with kindness and sincerity. That's the real wealth in life." Stepping outside, the golden sunlight wrapped around her, as if celebrating a fresh start. She got into her car, her heart brimming with complete happiness at the thought of the smile soon to grace her sister's face. Back inside, Brandon watched Anna's figure recede into the distance, his heart feeling light and at peace for the first time. He knew he was no longer the man he'd once been. He'd become someone better, kinder, thanks to the profound lesson Anna Mitchell had brought him. Life is sometimes a series of events that teach us how to heal and forgive. For Anna, Brandon, and all who witnessed this story, the deepest final message remained. The true worth of a person always lies in the sincerity and kindness within their heart, not in anything else.